Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Valentina Siahaan from Institute Technology of Bandung, and now I will be presenting about my paper, which is Modeling Para Shopping Experience Customer Shopee in Indonesia. Here's the overview of my presentation, and I will be starting from the introduction. According to Parastanti, Indonesia is one of the countries that enjoys using the internet, which promotes the development of the e-commerce sector and e-commerce purchasing. Shopee is very popular in Indonesia. There are other e-commerces, but Shopee is by far the most leading one. The Indonesian e-commerce market contributed to the global growth rate of 17% in 2023. In 2020, Shopee had 96.5 million more visitors than any other e-commerce site, maintaining its lead. Tokopedia is in second place with 85 million users, followed by Bukalapak with 31.4 million, and at last place is Lazada with 22.7 million users, according to iPress Insights in 2019. According to e-commerce DB in 2023, global e-commerce sales like those in Indonesia are likely to rise in the coming years. Perceived ease of use in the online environment affects customers' preference and past experiences with online purchase. Customers would have a positive impression of the virtual shopping center if they found the site to be straightforward and educational. According to research by Governance Rob, the more comfortable a person feels using the internet, the more likely they are to make purchase online. And given this context and these problem phenomena, the researcher has settled on the following research questions to investigate: to know how prior shopping experience affect perceived usefulness, to know how prior shopping experience affects perceived ease of use, and to know how prior shopping experience affects repurchase intention of Shopee as the e-commerce used. And here are my research objectives and research questions. The first objective is to identify the influence of prior shopping experience against perceived usefulness. Second one is to identify the influence of prior shopping experience against perceived ease of use. The last one is to identify the influence of prior shopping experience against repurchase intention. And the research questions are: does prior shopping experience affect perceived usefulness? Second one is: does prior shopping experience affect perceived ease of use? The last one: does prior shopping experience affect repurchase intention? Moving on to the literature review. The first one is prior shopping experience. Digital gadgets such as smartphones and tablets are becoming increasingly common, and consumers are turning to online communities and recommendation engines for guidance when making purchases, according to Chung. And the second one is perceived usefulness. Perceived usefulness is the culmination of a sequence of purchasing activities, while consumers correlate ease of use and enjoyment with one's shopping strategy and one's subjective delight while e-shopping, according to Childers. And then perceived ease of use, in this context, degree to which a person believes that utilizing a certain system would be devoid of effort, stands for perceived ease of use. And then the repurchase intention means that trust in the seller is crucial for developing customer loyalty and maintaining consumer-seller interactions, as stated by Reichelt and Schafter. So there are three hypotheses. The first one is prior shopping experience positively affects the perceived usefulness of online shopping. The second one is prior shopping experience positively affects the perceived ease of use of online shopping. And prior shopping experience positively affects consumers' online repurchase intention. This is the theoretical framework, and these are the variables. So moving on with the research methodology. The researcher uses a survey questionnaire as the initial stage of her quantitative descriptive data collection strategy. The main objective is to gather information that may be used to describe the researcher's topic and then the data collection. In order to thoroughly understand the topic and provide answers to the main research questions, the researcher will rely on data collected from primary sources only. And then the data sampling. Data acquired from primary sources will be used to gain a comprehensive understanding of the issue and answer the core research questions. Moving on with data analysis. So the other model testing is to test the reliability and validity. The other model is an analysis of the reliability and validity of a data collection. Internal validity and external validity are often used as the fundamental scientific standards for a study's validity. So the first one is convergent validity. It assesses the relationship between constructs and latent variables. And second one is discriminant validity. It which is using cross-loading and comparison of the AVE value with the square of the correlation value between the constructs, or a comparison of the square root of the AVE with the correlation between the constructs. The determinability of the reflective model was assessed. And then the last one is composite reliability. There are two techniques to assess a construct's reliability using reflecting indicators such as Cronbach's alpha and composite reliability, often known as Dillon-Goldstein's. Moving on with the inner model testing. Inner model testing is for hypothesis testing. The inner model, also known as the structural model or substantive theory, describes how latent variables relate to one another in light of substantive theory. The significance of the structural root parameter coefficients was determined using the t-test and the r-square for the dependent construct, Stone-Geiser q-square for predictive relevance, and the Stone-Geiser q-square were used to determine the structural model. When the r-squared value shifts, so does the independent latent variable's influence on the dependent latent variable. One way to evaluate how well the model and parameter estimates explain the data is via the q-square statistic. A model is deemed to have predictive significance when its q-square value is more than 0, and to have no predictive relevance when its q-square value is 0. Using the formulation and research goals as a guide, the following hypotheses were evaluated. Moving on with data collection and results, I'll start from the demography. At this point, the researcher reflects on the demographic data collected from the respondents. Respondents' gender, age, place of residence, occupation, and annual household income are all included in this data set. 87 responses were collected after administering the questionnaire. Furthermore, for this study, the researcher pulled together all respondents of a similar age into a single cohort. In such case, respondents' ages are aggregated into the precarious productive age range of 17 until 35. The researcher classified respondents into two groups based on their place of residence: those who live in Jakarta area and Bandung area. There are 68% of those who reside in Jakarta and 32% in Bandung area. Jakarta and Bandung were selected as study locations because they are large cities in Indonesia and because e-commerce activity is growing in both cities. In addition, the respondents' professional status was recorded as part of the personally identifiable information acquired by the researchers from the questionnaire they filled out. The majority of survey takers were students, which is 72%, and at least according to the preliminary data we have, while 28% are in the commercial world, self-employed, or in the civil service. And researchers collected respondents' employment status and total annual earnings into three groups: those who make less than 4 million rupiah per month, those who make between 4 and 5 million rupiah per month, and those who make more over 5 million rupiah per month, made up of three groups of responders. The poll found that 55% of the respondents were living on less than 4 million rupiah per month. There are 22% of respondents whose monthly wage is between 4 and 5 million rupiah, and 23% whose monthly salary is more than 5 million rupiah. So moving on to our model testing, the first one is discriminant validity. Each latent variable underwent a discriminant check to ensure that the indicators were showing independent variance. The first stage of this examination includes the use of all indicators. It was discovered through testing that Y2 and Y3 did not have discriminant validity values that were adequate to meet validity requirements. As for the per indicator calculation, each indicator is in the valid category, but with the phenomenon wherein several indicators similarity is found in the results of the questionnaire caused by the presence of similarity values in the statements of the respondents, the researcher eliminated indicators that are considered to have similarity values. After eliminating indicators X1.1, Y1.3, and Y2.1, which were considered to have a low level of variation with other indicators on the same variable, the value of discriminant validity in the data findings was achieved as shown in the HCMT table, so that it can be ensured that the results of further analysis that will be presented have the appropriate level of variation and meet discriminant validity. Even though it contains a factor above 0.7, if the discriminant validity does not match according to the theory of Hare, indicators that have a tendency to be redundant, they can be eliminated. As you can see, X1.1, Y1.3, Y1.5, and Y2.1 is eliminated. Moving on with the convergent validity. convergent validity can be determined by examining the outer loading value for each indicator or questionnaire item. As was done in the three-value test undertaken by the researcher, convergent validity is carried out to see the value of validity in its relationship between indicators and each research latent variable. In other words, the purpose of this study was to examine the convergent validity between previous shopping factors and ratings of usefulness, convenience of use, and intent to repurchase. Each indicator in this investigation had a convergent validity value more than 0.7, as shown by the results of evaluating the outer loading value. Going deeper, the table below displays the results of the outer loading test of all indicators whose discriminant validity values have been calculated by eliminating indicators that have similarity values. From the results of the convergent validity test, it can be concluded that all the indicators used and some of the indicators that have been eliminated in this study fulfill the convergent validity value. From this figure, we can see that from the bar graph that each variable exceeds 0.7, where it means that they are all reliable. Moving on with inner model testing. At the inner model testing stage, it was found that the results of the Q-squared test on the research findings for each variable were more than 0. If it is oriented to Hare's theory, which says if the Q-squared value is more than 0, then the relationship between latent constructs has predictive capability. Moving on with the correlation between prior shopping and perceived usefulness, data analysis revealed that having shopped for similar items beforehand significantly improved perceived usefulness. The path coefficient test results support this, showing that prior shopping has a significant and favorable influence on perceived usefulness. Between 0.222 and 0.573, the path coefficient is suggestible. The first hypothesis can be easily accepted on the basis of the numerical data. In other words, there is a slight but positive correlation between prior shopping and perceived utility. Q-squared values of 0.110 or below, which is less than or equal to 0.15, indicates high significance. From the description and presentation of the results of the hypothesis testing above, it can be concluded that H1 in the first hypothesis is accepted, or in other words, prior shopping has a significant and positive effect on perceived usefulness. The more customers Shopee in Indonesia have prior shopping experiences, the higher their level of perceived usefulness. Moving on with the correlation between prior shopping and perceived ease of use, statistical analysis of the collected data revealed that prior shopping beforehand significantly raised the level of perceived ease of use. The results of the path coefficient test corroborate this, that demonstrate that having shopped before has a positive and substantial effect on perceived ease of use. The path coefficient is 0.403, and between 0.222 and 0.573, the path coefficient is susceptible. By seeing the path coefficient value and p-value, H1 in the second hypothesis is accepted, which means that prior shopping significantly and positively affects perceived ease of use on Shopee customers in Indonesia. Furthermore, even though there is positive correlation between prior shopping and perceived ease of use, by seeing the Q-squared values that are only 0.094 or less than or equal to 0.15, it indicates that the significance is categorized as low. The more prior shopping experiences consumers have, the perceived ease of use will also improve. Moving on with the last one, which is correlation between prior shopping and repurchase intention. The collected data showed that a statistically significant increase in repurchase intention occurred when prior shopping increased. So the path coefficient test findings corroborate this, which shows that prior shopping experience significantly affects the repurchase intention with path coefficient value about 0.508, and the p-value is 0.000. And the in-depth of the confidence interval for the path coefficient is between 0.371 and 0.651. So furthermore, the level of predictive relevance to the relationship between prior shopping and repurchase intention is 0.164, where 0.164 is more than 0.15. It means that the predictive relevance of the relationship between these variables is moderate. So based on all these test results, it can be concluded that H1 in hypothesis 3 is accepted. In other words, prior shopping has a significant and positive effect on repurchase intention with a moderate level of predictive relevance. So that if the level of consumers prior shopping increase, the level of repurchase intention on Shopee customers in Indonesia will linearly increase. The conclusion is the analysis and test findings demonstrate that there is a positive and significant relationship between previous shopping and purchase intention with a predictive relevance value of 0.164. On the Q-square scale, this value represents as a middle ground. Conclusions on the significance and positive impact of pre-shopping on the three variables were drawn from the analysis of the data and the hypothesis testing. Shopee users in Indonesia are more likely to be satisfied with the service, make additional purchases, and rate the store positively if they have significant number of previous purchases. In this study, all hypotheses for H1, H2, and H3 are significant. Thank you for listening to my presentation and have a nice day.